We worried that this would happen, and it's happening. COVID anti-vaccine sentiment is now bleeding over into other vaccines, and parents are increasingly hesitant to get their kids vaccinated against all sorts of other things, including measles. And one of those, one of the problems with that is we are now starting to see outbreaks exactly as predicted. You might remember back in November, we talked about this story. CNN reported as measles outbreak sickens more than a dozen children in Ohio, local health officials seek help from the CDC. A growing measles outbreak in Columbus has sickened more than a dozen unvaccinated children and hospitalized 9 of them. Look at that ratio, 75% hospitalization. We often forget how serious measles is, particularly in kids, because vaccination is so effective. And this leads to some parents saying, whoever heard of a kid getting measles? It doesn't sound like it's likely, and it certainly doesn't sound serious. That's because of vaccines. We have a report now from NBC4 about how vaccine hesitancy that has sort of spilled over from COVID vaccines into other vaccines is causing exactly this problem. Take a listen to this.
Hey there, everybody. U.S. childhood vaccinations have dipped again this year.
Yeah.
A new report from the CDC suggests what started as a concern about the COVID-19 vaccine, especially in younger people, is now carrying over into other shots, too, including polio, diphtheria, and measles. It's likely one of the reasons cluster outbreaks of diseases such as measles are on the rise. CDC reports show last year it was in the Twin Cities, Minnesota area. Currently, it's in and around Columbus, Ohio.
In the Columbus outbreak, there are over 85 cases and can be counting. That was compared to last week's data. But over 30 of those kids were hospitalized, and most of those cases were in unvaccinated children.
Yeah.
Dr. Denise Warwick is a pediatrician who told me this new report shows overall those receiving vaccines required by most states is now at about 93%. It was at 95% just 2 years ago before the pandemic began.
Now, that 93 and 95% number is actually critically important. The herd measles is so contagious that the herd immunity threshold to prevent outbreaks is considered to be 95%. That has dropped to 93% when it comes to children entering kindergarten with the required immunizations, 93%. When you are below, people think, oh, this is some vague thing. It's just numbers. No, it has real world consequences. When you go below that herd immunity threshold for some diseases, you will start to see outbreaks. And that is exactly what is going on. And this was the fear that the COVID anti-vaxxers who first entered anti-vaxxerism with the COVID vaccine would bleed over into more general opposition to child vaccinations because the general environment starts to become one of vaccine hesitancy. And if you get enough people in a community that are skeptical or opposed to vaccines, it can make others in the community more likely to say, well, if these 3 families aren't doing it, maybe I shouldn't do it either. If the healthcare providers, if the public health officials aren't well prepared to deal with the vaccine hesitancy, they are going to be under-resourced and not able to keep those vaccine rates up. And I've spoken to a number of pediatricians, I know friends of mine who say, I get more people than ever, even in liberal areas, people coming to me and saying, does my child really need all these vaccines? Some of these things don't really seem super serious, or they don't seem super common or likely that my child would get. And the pediatricians have to explain, well, that's because of the success and effectiveness of many of these vaccines. This is a separate conversation from the COVID vaccine. And unfortunately, what we expected to see happen is indeed happening, as we see in these reports. What will turn it around, I quite frankly don't know. It's pretty horrifying, to be totally honest. I've had such trouble finding a great razor where I am not cutting myself or getting those nicks on my skin, which are so common with the cheap disposable razors. You have to meet our sponsor, Henson Shaving. Henson actually manufactures parts for the International Space Station and the Mars rover, and they are bringing that exact same precision engineering to the shaving experience. It hurts when you shave because blades extend too far and thus they wobble slightly. But with their aerospace grade CNC machines, Henson is able to make metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches. That's less than the thickness of a human hair, which means a secure, stable blade with a vibration-free shave. It also has built-in channels to evacuate the hair and the cream. No more clogs, no more rubbing your thumb on the razor to get the hair out. I use Henson at home. Shaving is a great experience now. Henson wants to be the best razor, not the best razor business, which means you only need to buy it once and it's awesome. Go to hensonshaving.com/Pacman. Add a razor and a 100-pack of blades to your cart, then enter the code Pacman to get the 100 blades for free. That is a 3-year supply. The link is down below.